Are you struggling to find the right professional talent for your project? Are you working with a limited budget?
We are so excited about our next sponsor, Casting Networks. I have personally used Casting Networks to release a number of projects for free to the industry's largest network of professional performers for my commercial work and for my very first short film, Strange Thing.
Creators can manage submissions, schedule auditions, request and review self-tapes, and book top talent for their projects, all in one place. All for free.
On Casting Networks, you can create an account and send your casting call to thousands of professional talent. So join Casting Networks, the industry's preferred casting platform where more than 1.2 million performers have scheduled over 14 million auditions. That's a lot of auditions. Visit www.castingnetworks.com/movies to create an account for free today. You know, making movies is hard.
Making movies is hard.
Welcome. This is the podcast about the struggle of being an independent filmmaker. I'm Alrik Bazell, the founding host of the podcast, and I'm a sci-fi horror filmmaker, and my first feature film, The Alternate, will be coming out on September 13th.
I'm Liz Manischel. I'm a writer, director, producer who has made 2 features, Bread and Butter and Speed of Life, and I'm currently in development on 17 more. I'm a distribution consultant who used to manage Sundance's creative distribution initiative, and I do sales.
This week, we have writer-director Addison Heimann on the show to talk about the making of his first feature, Hypochondriac, that is in theaters now and coming out on demand on August 4th. Addison talks about how he met his producers on his film festival run for one of his shorts, how he got Hypochondriac together and got this movie in production and ready to shoot before the pandemic and then waited to shoot once things opened back up. And then he talks about how he got connected to XYZ as the distributor for the film and kind of what happened after he premiered at South by Southwest. After that, we read an iTunes review, which is amazing. We answer a listener question, even more amazing. And if there's time, Liz is even going to ask me a question. Oh my God, I'm most excited for that. But,
oh no.
Liz, how are you doing?
I'm negative. I'm COVID negative. What? We all tested negative. Colin is back in daycare, day 2 of daycare. Life is better because I'm a workaholic and my identity is tied to what I get done that day. And so it's been 3 weeks of feeling, not productive. And so I feel just so much better. I'm going on a hike later on today. I'm producing pages. I'm knocking things off my to-do list. Things are good. Things are better than they were. How are you?
I'm very good. I had an interesting thing happen. I talked on the podcast about the desire to read more scripts, and then a listener said, "Hey, yeah, I heard what you said on the podcast. I have a script. Would you like to read it?" And I was like, "Sure, that's exactly what I'd like." And I started to read it, and it's really fun. It's really cool. I read, I think, 10 pages of it in like right away as soon as I open the document, which usually doesn't happen. Usually I open the document, I read like 1 or 2 pages, and I'm like, nah, okay, I'll read this later. But like if I get 10 pages in my first opening of the document, that means that it was good. And then I was going to read more of it. I thought I would be done with it by today, but then I'm collaborating. So I have many collaborations, Liz. I don't know if you know about this, if I've talked about this enough, but I'm working with lots of different writers on different things. And this guy that we've been working on this thing since I think February or March. And he was going to have a full draft done by the end of April. And we were so excited. And then the whole thing with Lifelink happened and I completely stopped pushing him. He got really busy. I got really busy and it just completely fell apart.
And Lifelink is which project is Lifelink?
That's the one that I'm waiting to hear back about the investors that they keep on saying they have all this money. And then, it's the lead investor didn't show up to the meeting. Everyone else liked it, but the decision maker wasn't there. It's like, okay, let's just do it already. I mean, just tell me. I don't it doesn't need to be made. I don't need to direct this movie. I would love to, but it's okay, just I want to know. I'm tired of not knowing. But I think I've also just accepted that I'm not going to know until it either happens or doesn't happen. That could be years. So I'm just going to, whatever.
Keep plugging away.
Yeah. But this thing is cool because I emailed him on Monday right before we recorded. And I was like, hey, what's going on? I read what he'd sent me last, which I hadn't read. And then I was like, oh, here's what I think of what you sent me. He's like, oh, it's very different now. I'm still working on it. It's actually really great that you emailed me because I just felt renewed. So I'm going to write the first act and send it to you by Friday. And then he did. And so that completely derailed reading the script that I was sent by lovely listener of the show, Dominic Zappia.
The one who wrote us on Twitter.
Yeah,
He's the VIP of this episode.
We'll hear we'll hear more from him later. But yeah, he found me on LinkedIn, and yeah, we became friends on LinkedIn, and then he sent me a script.
Oh.
But yeah, I was like all jazzed about this thing, but then I had this other stuff to read, so I had to read those 40 pages instead, and I just finished. I was have a meeting today with him to talk over the notes, but this other script is very cool. Like, I'm really excited about this thing that my friend's writing. So it's sort of like it energized me in a way, and it's kind of like at this point, like, you know, between my writing, which is not happening, like scripts I read and the script that's being written, it's like whatever is the most exciting and that I can actually think I can make within a reasonable budget, that's the thing I'm going to make next. So we'll see which one wins. Yeah. It's like they're all fighting for my attention, but it's fun because it's all very interesting and good stuff. But I'm just trying to find that thing that I can like latch onto, like the alternate, and just be like, this is the project we're making. And sadly, it's not anything that I have. I mean, Lifelink is that, of course, but like you're talking about a multi-million-dollar movie. It's like I can't put the weight of trying to raise over $1 million on my shoulders, like by myself. Like, it's just not something I want to do.
It has to be one of many. The bigger projects have to be one of many, I think.
Yeah. So I have a lot of those. I have a lot of these movies that are like $1 million plus stuff. That's like, you know, even two that are written, and then like actually 3 that are written pretty much, but all by different writers. And so it's like, those are all there, but it's like, I need the thing that's like, you know, in the alternate realm that I can like conceivably actually raise the money to make, and then like make that be the next thing I spend the next like 2 to 5 years on, you know?
Yeah.
Unless one of these other bigger projects happen in the meantime. So trying to find that thing. And it's been an exciting week, just like reading things that you like and being excited by them, you know? So that's been fun.
It sounds as if things have turned around for you. Like last week, maybe, you know, I think lately there have been, I wouldn't even say that they were darker conversations, but maybe more anxiety was fueling our back and forth, but it feels like excitement is fueling this conversation.
Yeah, I think like I had anxiety over other things in my life, like, you know, with my job and, you know, other things going on, and just like the everyday stresses of being a parent, which is like the highest of the highs and sometimes the lowest of the lows, like all in one day, which is like, it's really fun, but it can be intense sometimes. But yeah, I think like I've been feeling bad about not writing. I think that's really been the thing, is like I've just been feeling bad about not being the writer I wish I was. But I think what I'm also realizing is that maybe that's not going to be my path for my next movie, is not going to be written by Alrik. Maybe it'll be like something that I collaborate with someone else on. And I have no qualms about that. So yeah, I feel like that I'm excited by. So yeah, I don't know. I guess, I don't know. People are so weird. Our emotions are, it's like the way that we are. It's like when, like literally nothing has changed in my life from when I was like more down to now. But like now I'm feeling better, but nothing has changed.
Well, it could be the weather. It could be what you ate this morning. Yeah, it could be what you watched. I was thinking about what you're saying about writing, and I had my session with Amy last week, and I said to her, I was like, Amy, I just realized something. I've had a hard time producing pages, and I normally write in the morning, and our deadline is at night. Could I change our deadline to the morning? And she looked at me flabbergasted, and she was like, yeah, of course you can. Like, we create the rules. We get to do whatever we want. And I was just thinking about how sometimes you have to change your perspective to re-engage yourself in a project and to want to write and to set up the situation for you to like actually enjoy yourself. And it could be so minor.
Yeah.
It could be that you need to immerse yourself in other people's work for like a year before you really want to immerse yourself in your own. Or it could be like you need to clear a full day to think about yourself for one, you know, for the whole day. Just about you. Right. Like, I thought it was so funny how...
Oh, I can't do that.
No, none of us could really do that, but you could take a long bath like you've talked about in the past. But I guess like what I'm acknowledging in response to what you said, it's like maybe it's so minor, the change that happened between last week and this week, that you're not even noticing. It's imperceptible. But like your entire tone has changed. You seem
I think
enthusiastic.
I think it's just like, you know, I think getting inspired by writing that you like, I think is really what it is. Like when you're reading a story that compels you, you know, I think that it helps in a big way. Yeah. And I read a short story probably 2 weeks ago that really did that too. But then it was like this really weird reaction to it where it's like, oh, this is so exciting. Like this would make such a great movie. But then I was like, oh my God, it's like another job. Like I have to take this short story and write a full script out of it. Like, when am I going to do that? Like, that's never going to happen. So I'm going to try to talk to that writer and see if like they're up for writing the feature length version of their own short story. But I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to be interested.
But it's exciting. Like,
it is exciting.
I met with a choreographer yesterday for this proof of concept short for the musical that I want to do. And just like having a conversation with her about what she does and her, like, I didn't even know she focuses on movement. And I was like, what does that mean? And then I started to think about that. I was like, oh, well, I could use that. Like, that's someone who's an expert in how to use your body. That's blocking for like a nonverbal, like, I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, why have I never worked with a choreographer in blocking something out? And that was so exciting. And these are such minor revelations that we're having, but they're thrilling, right? Like, you read a short story and it excited you. And I had a conversation with a choreographer and it was just like a half hour and it got me high, right? So I think we're both in a good creative stage. We may not know exactly what the project is that's going to hit for either of us, right? But at least we're having fun all of a sudden. Yeah.
I don't think you really know until you're in it or you decide to do it.
Yeah.
Right. And, I feel like it's just that when you just make the decision, it's like, this is happening no matter what happens. I don't care what it takes. We're doing this, and I think like I want that feeling for a feature. I wanted to have that excitement. Like, yeah, this is it. We're doing this. Like, I want to be able to see it come together like creatively, but then also be able to see it come together like in the real world. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where you like imagine locations and you're like, oh, I know somebody who has this that I could get access to. Oh, I know where we could go do this. Like, and you can start piecing it together where it's like, oh, you don't need anything else. Like, you can just do it, And I love when that starts to happen.
And the train is moving on its own. When you're no longer at the back of the train, putting your old weight on it, pushing it forward, like inch by inch, axle by axle. Yeah.
You got the coal to throw into the what do you call it?
Or Tinder? Steam or...
Yeah. I don't know. What do they use for trains these days? Do you still use coal or do they use something else?
I have no idea.
We all know coal's bad, but I'm just saying that's what trains
But
use.
Metaphorical coal, I think, is okay.
Yes, exactly. Well, what isn't metaphorical that is also good is our Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/MMIH podcast. You can, check out all the little bonus videos we have there, our weekly meetings. And most importantly, we want to wish a very happy birthday to our newest patron, Eric Deal. Thanks so much for supporting the show, Eric.
Eric! Oh, wait. Eric's like a buddy in a weird way. He's like my internet buddy. Is he an internet buddy for you?
Oh, no. I didn't know Eric Deal until I saw his name pop up this morning.
Eric, that's so awesome. Well, thank you. Oh.
Do you want to give a shout out to Eric Deal? Like, is he just like a Twitter buddy? Like, how do you know this person?
He's an internet buddy, and we just kind of like update each other on our projects. And he was a supporter of Witchy. Like, he actually donated a little bit of money to make Witchy happen. And he actually just watched it the other day, and I got to get his feedback. But anyway, he's a lovely human, and I don't even know how I met him. Now I'm embarrassed. But thank you for supporting the show, Eric.
Well, Eric is a homie.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Thank you, Eric. Also, don't forget to check out jambox.io. They're a new royalty-free music and sound effects company with an emphasis on high-quality cinematic cues. Their composers worked on soundtracks for Hollywood-level films, working with directors like Michael Bay and Martin Scorsese. And they also do customized plans to fit your needs, which is great. So use our code MMIH to sign up for a 20% discount today. But without any more further delay, here is our chat with Addison Heimann.
Can you give us the elevator pitch for Hypochondriac?
Sure. Oh my God, I have so many different ones depending on like if people have seen it or not. But basically, it is a gay horror movie based off my mental breakdown. Sounded blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so it's centered around a character. His name is Will. Cipher for me because it's based on a real breakdown. Says at the very beginning. He's a young potter who has a pretty good life. He's a boyfriend. His boss sucks, but whatever. But when he was 12 years old, his mother tried to kill him during a moment of psychosis. She's bipolar. And so years later, while he's at his job, he gets this phone call from his mother, and that's immediately starts triggering all these symptoms that he can't explain. And then as he injures himself at work, he starts hallucinating a man in a wolf costume, basically his manifestation of his childhood trauma. So as he tries to solve the symptoms of his physical symptoms, he goes down a spiral of denial until he cracks. But yeah, so that's basically what Hypochondriac is. A story about mental health told in an emotional retelling of what it's like to crack.
And then how many days did you shoot the film?
20 days. We had 4 weeks, which is great for an indie because Lord knows there was so many moving parts and I'm the idiot that wrote 11 locations. I think actually 15 or 16 locations, but we shot part of it in the studio. So like we were at a new location like every 2 or 3 days, including one time where our base camp was under the 101 freeway. And that was a nightmare. But everybody was, the cool thing about it is it's like, it's a movie about my mental breakdown and we're all working. We're like, oh God, I'm about to say this and I'm so sorry. We were like a family. But like everybody, I don't know. Like, I think you're going to ask this question later, but I can answer it now, whether or not I'm making a movie about my mental breakdown was cathartic. But the answer is obviously yes. But like the moment of, so the moment of basically like, there's all these like little small moments that make me feel so grateful. It's like the third day after we've done 3 days and everybody's working hard for a movie. And I'm just like, why am I so great? And I just start like sobbing to my boyfriend. I'm like, people like me and they care. And it's like, of course they do. What are you talking about? Or like, there's a moment, spoilers and non-spoilers. I can spoil stuff working on.
Spoil away.
Okay, cool. So there's the scene of physical violence at the very end where he kills his mother, quote unquote. The third take we did, they did something different that totally freaked me out, and I was like, holy shit, what am I doing? Why am I making this movie? And I like went up and have a panic attack, and then I come back downstairs, and all the crew is looking at me with concern, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, thank you." We all took a collective breath together, and then we continued the scene work. But so like getting to do that and getting to work with this crew that really cared and put their all into this, because I don't ascribe to the auteur theory. I don't think that we make movies in a vacuum because, like you said, like the title of your podcast, movies are hard to fucking make, right? So like I had the best people on my shoulders constantly telling me like what I should do and giving me these decisions and supporting me. And ultimately it was like one of the best experiences of my life and the worst experiences of my life. And I can't wait to do it again.
Well, we have questions about that. What can you speak of with regard to the budget of the film?
I can say that it wasn't enough.
Sure.
Yeah, I've been told by my producers that I'll be killed if I say the actual budget. But let's say we were not working for Marvel or even A24 or even you can get the gist of maybe what I'm trying to say, but I can't say specifics.
Yeah, and we're not going to try to trick you into giving a number.
Yeah.
But if you could give a range that's even more specific, like could you say it's under 500,000? Would that be safe to say?
Let's say it was under $1 million. Okay. That gives us a lot
of leeway. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, right? If I like say the actual budget and then I go to another company and be like, make this movie, they're like, oh, you made it for that, so you'll just make that again. And I'm like, no, please give me more though, because honestly, like I don't think I can do that again because we had a bunch of favors and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
No, yeah. We completely understand.
Yeah. But thank you for going along with me in the ride, and I didn't give you that much information.
So you talked about it a little bit already, but like, how did you come up with the idea? Like, was it like, I mean, I know you said it's your mental breakdown, but like, talk about the origin of actually writing about it into a story.
Totally. So the short version of the mental breakdown is I lost full functioning of my arms for 6 months after an injury at work. And after I visited Dr. Google was telling me that I was dying of ALS. And my friend's brother had just died of ALS. Turns out there were stress symptoms, but I didn't acknowledge that at the time because I didn't know. Because did you know that anxiety can just transform and change on you for no fucking reason?
Experience it.
Yeah. I mean, come on. It's like the fucking worst. So it's like, so I didn't recognize it at the time. And my mom's bipolar, and she was leaving me a bunch of voicemails telling me not to trust my friends. So those voicemails that are in the movie are actual transcriptions of the voicemails that my mom left me. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So basically that happened. And kind of near the endish of the breakdown, I'm in physical therapy. And my physical therapist is like, Addison, you're a writer. You should write. I think it'll help you. And I'm like, but I'm in too much pain. He's like, just try. All you have to do is write for 5 minutes. And I was like, okay. So I had 2 pillows on my desk. I had 2 ice packs on my arms and my computer against the wall. And what you'll ask me about later, the dog poster staring at me in the face. And so I wrote the first 15 pages of the very bad version of the first draft, because ultimately it was like a vomit draft. It was like a therapy draft for me. It was just the actual retelling of what happened. And then once I learned that just because it happens doesn't mean it's interesting, I decided to form, a script that was more of an emotional retelling of the breakdown rather than like a scene for scene, act for act reenactment. Although, however, a lot of it did happen, but it's just like all the parts mixed in. And originally, the man in the wolf costume, the original plot of the draft or of the script was my character's best friend had just suddenly dropped dead in front of him on Halloween, so he was being haunted by his friend. But ultimately, very, very thankful to all my friends who told me that sucked. It was basically just like you're trying to write about your mother, and I have been probably trying to write about the relationship with my mother for like 10 years in various forms, but it wasn't until I like finally broke through and I was like, oh, I finally see how, because I literally almost became her. So I was like, okay. What I really liked about the wolf was that it's kind of this idea of this combination. It's not quite a dog. It's not tamed. It could be tamed, kind of playing with the metaphor of mental health of like, the ending of the movie. It's like the wolf isn't necessarily a bad character. I would argue that the movie is basically just man versus mind. He's literally at war with his brain, which is why I never am interested in telling people what actually happened, because we are with him always. He's experiencing these things, and it's the only thing that we see because it's the only thing that he sees. So this wolf is just his childhood trauma trying to get his attention. But the more he pushes away and tries to solve, like Hypochondriac, I think it's kind of a bait and switch title, because ultimately he's trying to solve these symptoms of what he thinks is his illness. But what he's not doing is dealing with the disease, which is in his hair and his blah, 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 blah. See, my brain. Do we blame the beer? I don't know. I'm going to take a sip. Ultimately, what he's trying to do is solve the symptoms instead of the disease of his underlying inherited trauma from his mother. So that's kind of how I formed the script. And what ultimately became the final draft when we decided to shoot and the pandemic pushed us 1.5 years when we shot after we were all vaccinated in June of 2021.
Well, that floats into the next question, but maybe you could add some more color. So the entire timeline of the film, from you coming up with this idea from your physical therapist saying, right, to now, what is that duration?
3.5 years up until right now. So I broke down in 2019, January to June was the bulk of it, but then still had to do some more physical therapy. And I wasn't really quite at my normal peak where I was able to do things until about August. But the breakdown, about 6 months, I started writing it during then. And then I found my producers accidentally at this film festival called Cucaloris in Wilmington, North Carolina. And then we decided to make the movie, pulled together our financing, and then March 2020, everything shut down. But ultimately, that ended up being very fortuitous for us, because it allowed both me as a first-time director, because I was only a writer-producer up until that point, because it was my mental breakdown. It was like, wow, I see it. I know what happened. So it allowed me to basically get as much, study film school, kind of situation of learning how to be the director. I watched 400 horror movies in the pandemic. So we spent all that time, got our cast a little early, and then spent just a lot of time with them, spent a lot of time in pre-production. So by the time we finally got to shooting in those 20 days, very little went wrong. And I'm very grateful for that, mainly because of my producers, John Humber and Bayderas, who put out the fires without me knowing and just allowed me to be creative. And that's the thing about film, is it's producers are fucking, if they're good, it is just nothing. It's like lighting design, right? It's you only notice it if it's bad, but if it's good, you're just so invested in the story. It was my producers, they were I found out, they were oh, we had to do this, or this happened, and it was days after, and I was thank you for not telling me, because I was trying to tell a story about my mental break. And honestly, it's all I can do right now. I can't be we're being shut down, or just there's this person trying to bug us, or XYZ. But from script inception to our release, 3.5 years.
And then compared to all the other projects you've made, how difficult was this one?
It was just up, we upped the scale times 1,000, right? But I think I couldn't have made this movie without everything that came beforehand. I stand on the shoulders of the people who built me up and allowed me to learn on set because I went to school for theater. I didn't go to film school. So I wanted to be an actor and a playwright. And everybody told me that my plays sounded like screenplays, which is a huge insult in the theater community. So I was okay. So I wrote my first web series back when, web series were all the rage, called Kappa Force, which was about a bunch of sorority crime fighters trying to destroy evil frat scum. And then I went there, and then I was like, I'm going to move to LA and be famous. And then I moved to LA, and people were like, you and every other person has a web series, dipshit. And I was like, okay, cool. And then started making shorts, and then had my mental breakdown. That was pretty hard. So probably, that was hard. And then, but like, obviously much harder, but also we had a much bigger team, and I felt held the whole time. So like, it's a give and a take, but like, I vibe on intuition. I'm a very intuitive person, both as a writer and a director. So just like, I kind of love to sing and dance, and I love to be on set, and I love working with actors. So like, while it was hard, it was also fucking fun. So, that kind of combination of just like those two things. So while it felt more difficult, it was also like Wave is just, there's nothing like it, Can
we talk a little bit about, you mentioned Cucaloris, you mentioned accidentally meeting your producers.
Yeah.
The people who listen, by the way, Alrik and I are genre filmmakers who both make features. Yeah. And then our audience are all like emerging filmmakers looking for advice from people like you, right? So can you tell us a little bit about those pivotal moments of meeting your producers, getting financing, getting XYZ, all of these partners, because I feel like it's not as accidental as you just said very quickly that it was.
Yeah, I know, maybe not. I mean, listen, and not everybody does this, but like I moved to LA thinking that I was going to be a TV writer. That was like my goal. I wanted to be in a room. I loved television. I grew up on television. Like, that's how my father and I bonded. We watched The X-Files and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Star Trek Voyager together. Like, that was like what I wanted to do. And I got there and I was like, oh, this is so much harder than I thought this was going to be, to work machine, because you have to put in your dues. And the people who I knew my age who already put in their dues moved when they were 22, and then they were TV writers. And I was like at 30 or like about to be 30. And I'm like, I don't know if I could be a writer's PA and then a writer's assistant here, because then by the time I'm 40, that's when I'll be a TV writer. But I was like, I don't know what else to do. So I started doing indie stuff. And honestly, film festivals I owe everything to film festivals. It's hard because they're a little bit of a racket, because there's a lot of pay to play and you're just making expensive business cards. But like, also, I got to be a part of a freshman, like me and my buddy Colin West, who made Linoleum, had our first features premiere. I don't know if it was first feature, but had our features at Fantasia in 2019 at the International Sci-Fi Block. And then 3 years later, I see the South by announcement, and both of our first features are in the lineup. And it was like, whoa, like it's the community, right? It's those people who are speaking your names in rooms that you don't necessarily are a part of. But I try to do that as well. Like, I probably will do that here and acknowledge all the other filmmakers that like I'm now friends with, and we've become, even especially the XYZ films, and they're year one of distribution. Like, I've met them along in all these film festivals, and it's so cool to have this little like freshman class of people who are becoming a part of this world. Because it wasn't an accident. I was yelling about Hypochondriac at every film festival I could get to, and hopefully not, there's a right way to network, and hopefully I wasn't the wrong way. I hope not. I got the movie made, so I hope it wasn't that. But you go to film festivals, you yell about your movie, you're at the parties, you're drinking or you're not drinking, depending, and you're just talking to people, and you're shooting the shit, and you're opining about the industry, but you're also supporting each other. And those are the places in which there's no ego. I mean, there might be, but especially with short films, they're like, we're all here together trying to rise. And so when I see my journey, and when I see the journey of the people around me coming up, it was through these discussions at film festivals. It was through having the work when asked at the right time, and then going through there. In terms of financing, I'm a bit privileged with me and my producers that we were able to pull it from private financing. And ultimately, that's really hard to do, especially as a first feature, because you're ultimately said to know a lot, because people are like, nobody wants to take risks. So we kind of circumvented that idea because of that. But through everything else, like, I had really good producers, and I got to pull together, like, my DP who worked on my short, and my friend, my friend Lizzie, who's having trouble getting hired as an AD for a feature because she'd never been an AD for a feature. So we're like, let's give you this first opportunity. She's like, is that okay? I'm like, Lizzie, it's my first opportunity. Like, let's do this together. So we had a young crew, but we had a very hungry crew. And so we all kind of learned together and had our own little version of film school or whatever it was. Obviously, certain people knew more. Like, my DP was very knowledgeable. My gaffer fucking saved the day. Like, we had a killer production design team, and everybody was doing good at it and killing it. And everybody kind of bonded to the point where we're making something special. I don't want to be like, because we're like, oh, we're making something special. Like, I always just like, yeah, we are. But I mean, ultimately, like, I made a movie about my mental health, and every time I screen the movie, somebody comes up to me and says, that's a very accurate depiction of mental health. I've never seen that before. Thank you so much for my movie. And if only one person told that to me, that's it. I made a movie that was worth it, you know? And like with South by and with XYZ, you know, it was also through connections. It was Dave Lawson at Rustic, who is producer for Justin and Aaron, who made Resolution and Spring and Something in the Dirt, who was like use my name. And then we sent it over to Nate and Pip at XYZ. And Nate was like, because of Dave's recommendation, and obviously we were in South by, like they watched it within 24 hours and they're like, we'll sell it or buy it. What do you want? And we're like, whoa, shit. And then like now getting to be a part of this team and going into release with them as distributors and basically being on my team, being like, we want to continue making movies with you. We want to grow your career. Ultimately, it's like over the accumulation of the last 5 years of me starting with a web series, of me leaving theater to go here, it's because of the people I met along the way that I'm anywhere near where I am. It is literally the community of filmmakers and people that I've met that have spoken my name in places in which I wasn't. So now I try to do that. I mean, I'm not even anywhere near as successful as like other people, but like even then I'm just like, let me mention all the movies that are incredible. Let me mention all these people that you need to know, because that is ultimately the only way all of us can rise together. Rising tides raises all boats. And that's the only way I believe to exist in this career that's so hard and so nebulous.
So you just said like 1,000 things that we need to unpack here and like talk about in more detail. I'm just going to hone in on the most recent one.
Yeah.
You said when you sent it to Nate, he said, we'll buy it or sell it. What do you want? Yeah. And so, can you go into more detail exactly about what that means? And then which one did you choose?
Oh,
and why?
Yeah. So, Nate was basically like a Dave Lawson recommendation gets I hope I can say these things. I think they're fine, because these are just normal conversations that you have. I mean, people should know this. Like Nate's like a recommendation from Dave is an immediate watch for us. And everybody had watched and really responded to the film. And I met with the sales agents and they were like, we can sell it. And then we were talking about who we would potentially go to. And they're like, but you should also meet with our distribution team, James Shapiro, who came from Draft House and then Neon, and then now is kind of building up XYZ's first year of distribution. And Something in the Dirt kind of like put them in that momentum. And now there's a bunch of amazing films like The Harbinger and The Summoned and Waseda and so many others that are like finally can be part of that. But like, so I met with their distribution team and they said all these words that felt very genuine, and XYZ is a very genuine company. They really stick behind their filmmakers. I mean, Gareth Evans has made several movies with them. Like, you know, Riley Stearns got to make Duel. Like they're all very much about keeping up like within, again, family. But like, you know, ultimately, what is this industry? But LA has no community. It's a series of communities that you have to search for. And so, so basically it was like, what they were like, do we want to be XYZ? Do we want XYZ to sell the movie and try to go through the sales agents, try to sell the like, you know, Neon or A24 or IFC Midnight or any of those Shudder and all that kind of stuff? Or do we want to trust them with their year one distribution? And ultimately, I think our meetings went well enough and there was enough of like a camaraderie in us that we were like, no, this is the place we want to be. And so that they made the offer, we did all the stuff, and then got into business with them.
Wow.
I want to talk a little bit about financing, because I understand you went to private resources, but I also know that private equity is going to have questions, right? They're going to ask like, why you? Why this money? You know, what is your... So did you go to them with a deck of projections? Was the play fostering a long-term career? Tell me what the pitch was.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's about my mental breakdown. So I had a little bit of an easier time convincing them why me, because it literally happened. But also we had a pitch deck that was made by my producer and me, and we put that all together. We had it's not a sizzle reel because we didn't film footage. What's the thing where you steal?
Rip-o-matic.
Yeah. So we had a Rip-o-matic, but we had our actor, who was cast rather early on, record the dialogue. So because we had Zach Villa attached kind of early on after the audit, because we had enough money for the casting stuff and the producers and us to start. And then we made the Rip-o-matic and showed all of that stuff. And then there was, unfortunately not anymore, 2020, like a tax write-off for investors. That's now, I think it's like a sunset rule or something along those lines where it doesn't exist anymore, but where they can write it off early. So there was a lot of things of like, these are all the things, this is how you could potentially make your money back. This is where we're going to start. And this is where we're planning on going. And unbelievably, everything happened. So it's kind of really, we got into South by, like we got distribution by one of my favorite companies whose movies that I watch, and we're going to be in limited theatrical release for a movie with no stars, no viable stars. And like, not to say they aren't talented and don't consistently work in television and stuff, but I'm sure you guys have made features, like the whole term of like viability and what sells. And of course, the international market is fucking terrifying and crazy because of the way that they exist. And it's very difficult to sell in international markets, especially for a queer Latinx horror movie. Like, it's like there's all these different things in which you have to piece together. But, you know, as you know, like tier one streaming is where you make most of your money back. And so like, or like most or become like you start seeing overages or whatever. So it's like you have all these like little pieces of like, and this is also me coming out of Fantasia now, learning so much more about how films get made than I did mine now, because I'm trying to get my next film made. And obviously I need more money than like the things you can find in your shoe. You actually, so it's like learning about how all this stuff works and how everything finances, and you learn that it's so not personal in like a good way. It's like, oh, I now know how to figure out how to pitch to something that is like, listen, and you have to play the game, right? You have to make sure that you can say these certain things of like how something will exist, why it will be successful, but also it's a business, right? But it's also an art. So it's like the film business. So you want to be able to cater to yourself and be as honest and true, but also the realistic thing is it's like movie needs to be watched by people and needs to be bought. So it's very complicated and hard. And I do realize I keep talking a lot as you like sit here and do things. And I'm sure you have like so many follow-up questions. So I'm just going to take a large sip of water. I'm drinking beer and water. So I'm going to do that. Well, you ask another question.
So follow up to that. How did you find your private equity investors? Like, were they people that you knew previously? Did you get introduced them?
Friends and family. It was friends and family. So it wasn't something we had to search very, very hard for. There were people that we already knew that were there for us. And so that was, So I'm very lucky and very privileged. That's like something I want to be very upfront about, because I don't want to have this like weird, like hidden agenda where I'm like, no, I came from nothing. I'm like, no, I came from something. Like I didn't make this movie in a vacuum. We had people that we could go to because of that very reason.
Well, I wanted just to hear, you know, you got XYZ, you have South by, you have Fantasia. Mm-hmm. Do you now, or did you get representation at any point through the journey? Like, how does the representation figure into it?
Yeah. So I got reps at a South by. I'm with Echo Lake with my manager, Keegan Shell, who I absolutely fucking adore. He's in his 30s and he's gay. So it's like perfect for me. We also text a lot, so it's like really good because it could be like, oh, this is like a very good relationship. But yeah, so representation is a little weird for me because a lot of my shorts, all of my shorts, only one short really got a decent festival run, and the other ones played primarily in the pandemic. So, and that's when everything was shut down. So representation was hard to find. But after like a web series and 3 shorts, I was like, this is going to happen, right? But then it was like everything was kind of done. So I was like, well, we have the feature. I'll start with the feature. We'll see what's happening. And then I was like, okay, cool. The deadline announcement announcing your cast is going to get inquiries for reps. No. And then the XYZ announcement is going to get inquiries from reps, maybe one. And then finally, when South by, happened, I started getting, and I was told this from other people, but I was like a little frustrated and maybe a little like, I made a feature. Somebody's going to want me, right? It's just, I need somebody on my team at this point. And who had reps are like, yes, you just have to wait. And then like the week before South by, I got reached out to by a bunch of managers and stuff asking for links. And then I met with a lot of them at South by. And then I did a very smart thing, which I think is really good advice for people who are seeking representation to figure out how they would work, is if they like you and they want you, you're like, cool, read my next thing and let's do a notes call. And then talk with them and do the notes call and see how you guys work with each other. And if you like the way that you do notes call, that's probably going to be the person you want to work with, because ultimately what you're going to be doing is you're going to be developing with them until you send stuff out. So when I did that, a lot of people kind of drop off the face of the earth, which was expected. But I had some people who fucking charged at me, and I was like, okay, cool. Now I know who wants to work with me, and I know who I want to work with. And then through narrowing that down, I was able to choose somebody who I thought was probably going to be my forever manager.
So I wanted to go back to like the film festival run for the short that did well in film festivals. So you're talking about like the community that you met and like going out to these film festivals and like kind of creating this connection with other filmmakers who are kind of on a similar trajectory to you.
Yeah.
Can you just talk about like what that was like? Was that where you met your producers? Like what other stuff kind of came out of the film festival run was it your first short or like second short or?
They were all kind of playing simultaneously because all of them were really VFX heavy. So I kind of made them one in November of 2017, one in January of 18, and one in January of 19. And they're kind of a trilogy of shorts, all kind of queer Black Mirror shorts, very small one location type situations, but they were very VFX heavy. And we had the same guy doing all the same VFX. So we kind of had to wait. So they all kind of like were abutted against each other. And I was like, this is a cool idea. Like, let's like see them one after the other. But yeah, so my web series played at the now defunct New York Television Festival, which was like a place where like that was my first taste of meeting execs for the first time. It's where I met like HBO execs and Freeform execs and all these kind of people. And I was like, oh, cool, I get to keep in contact with them. But ultimately, like, you know, again, it's just like, it's not everybody's responsive. Everybody's doing a bunch of different things. But yeah, my first short, Ava in the End, which is when I wrote and produced, and my friend director Ursula Ellis directed, premiered at Fantasia. And I was in the International Sci-Fi Box there. So that was kind of the beginning. And both Kit and Colin and I all have features now. Hers premiered at Slamdance, and then ours premiered at South by. So it's like, that was like the first time of like, oh, filmmakers that have kind of been there. And I think Kit's, that's their second feature. But then, you know, we were around, like we played, you know, like I think one of my short in which I fuck a car, also wrote and produced. Yeah, anyway, it's like a gay her, not Titan or Titan. Everybody says different. Anyway. You know, we played at like the Nashville Film Festival. I met a bunch of people there. We won the Grand Jury Prize. You know, I played at, you know, like a bunch of genre festivals like Horrible Imaginings, Film Quest, which was a really good one, especially for younger filmmakers, because in Provo, Utah, it's like a huge film festival, like Filmmakers Film Festival, in which people are there. And my friend Aaron Pagnano, like now also had a feature as well. So like I was slowly building this like kind of crew of people who were in the process of making shorts and turning into features. But it wasn't until Cucaloris in Wilmington, North Carolina that I found them. And by that point in my film festival run, I had gotten pretty good at just walking up to people and holding up my hand and shaking it. Like I was like, because at first, like my first film festival, I was like back against the wall being like, there are so many people. What am I even doing here? I'm so scared. And as a person who's like pretty gregarious, it's like really weird that I was so scared. But then once I realized that everybody's there for the same reason, it's like even this past week at Fantasia, I was like, I got more emboldened and I was just like, we're constantly meeting people from different places. And then I would like talk about Hypochondriac, and if they hadn't seen it in their places, I would like send them a link. And then I'm like, I'm not a script. Can I pitch you? And I'm like, and I was like, is that weird? They're like, no, it's like literally why I'm here. And I was like, oh, cool. But we're just at the bar. So we're like, so that's what I was doing at Cucaloris. Like there's this place called Django's Tavern where they just ply you with liquor and it's all free and it's all run by the festival. So I was there day after day. We all were just talking and talking and talking. And then I was just pitching Hypochondriac to anybody who would listen. But the irony is the first day at the first Cucaloris party, I walked up to John and Bay and just introduced myself. And then we just stuck together for the rest of the film festival. And so I was like constantly talking about the script when like at the end I was like, John, can I send this to you for notes? And he did, and he sent me good notes, and I was doing some rewrites. And then like come December, I was like, I think I could pull together the fundings to make it. And my friend, like, and I was like, I don't know if I should direct this. I'm not a director. Like, I don't think I am. And he's like, yes, you are. What are you talking about? You are. And also, who else would do this? And I was like, shit. So I texted John that night. I was like, do you want to produce this? And he was just like, yes, let's talk next week. And then that's how we got together. And it was just that relationship, wow. Meeting somebody at a film festival. Yeah.
I think we have to switch to the final 6 questions, but Alrik, is there anything you wanted to jump in with before?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, like, now that you have representation, you've played South by Southwest, you've played Fantasia with your first feature, you've done all these incredible things that all us filmmakers dream of. Like, what has it been like working with your rep since then? Like, what kind of things have you been doing? And like, what has that resulted in, if anything, so far?
Yeah. So I've been going on a lot of generals, which is what you end up doing. And because I'm trying to get my second feature made, that's usually what happens. And I'm really glad that I got it together before because that thing is like, that's another advice you have. If you've got a feature or you have a short, please have something next, because if you don't, like, then that conversation ends. And like, there's nothing to follow up on or look forward to. That's always like, so I was like literally ripping my brain open, doing press and doing film festivals while also trying to get a draft of a feature together. So where we're at the moment is I've just met with a couple. Yeah. So basically that's what I'm going on general. So I've been going on generals, all the big horror, like genre, like places, watch Hypo. I go and do the thing and I talk about the script and they're all like, great. Can't wait to read it. Send it me, bitch, ready. With Keegan and with Nick, my team editors and my producers as well. We've been developing it. And so the final draft will be due right after my release, because ultimately I thought there was going to be this one, but then I got some really good notes and I'm like, no, it could be better. So I'm like, we're getting it to Reddit. So, because, that's the thing, you have to make it as perfect as possible. So, because everybody wants to say no until they read something and they need to love it in order to say yes. Because it's not like read something and you're like, oh, I like this. No, they need to love it. So I'm like, I need to love it. So I'm going through that. So now that I've done these generals, once this final draft is done, then we're going to go out to everybody and see where things land. So that's currently in my trajectory, what's happening. And I've been offered a couple scripts, but I ultimately, like, while I like them, it's like I am a writer first and then and a director second. And I really, because my next one is also as personal as Hypo, also about mental health and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, this is the most important thing to me right now. And I really want to exhaust all options for this before I go out and branch out and direct other people's work, which I'm really excited to do. I just have like another thing that I really want to tell,
Nice.
All right, well, let's do a speed round of our final questions.
Okay.
What's the first film you ever made, and how do you feel about it now?
I mean, that was Capriforce, and also it's funny because I came to film late. So I mean, if you ask about my plays, that's a different story. Because I was a playwright, I'd be like, I don't see. Like, I wrote a play called Killing Dragons, which is about like a dragon hunter and like a person that he picked up at a bar trying to escape a dragon slayer, and there was just nothing happening. It was just concept alone. So maybe I'll say that. So I feel pretty terrible, and no one's going to read that. But my first web series, I actually feel pretty good about because I was like a little older and had really good people working on it. But yeah, but that play.
What's the best filmmaking advice you've ever received?
What makes a good director is be nice and make decisions when you're asked to.
What's the worst filmmaking advice you've ever received or witnessed or whatever?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if this is filmmaking advice, but one producer told me to tone down. He told me there was too many queer characters in my movie, and I listened to him. And then I ultimately, didn't work with that person.
Do you have a goal as a filmmaker?
Yes, I want to direct the X-Men franchise.
Whoa! I want you to too, because I'm a huge X-Men fan, and we need a good director, especially some fresh blood in that series.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I love them. I mean, like, even if it's not just X-Men, just give me like an episode of like make an Iceman series, so like it could be gay and anything. I fucking love it. Yeah.
Amazing.
If you could go back in time, what's the piece of advice you'd give yourself?
No one hates you.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's like the sweetest advice ever. Oh man, is making movies hard is the last question.
Of course. Oh my God, it's fucking impossible. But I'm not going to do anything else. But yes.
You survived. You did it. You got through the gauntlet of our interviews. Thank you very much.
You did it.
Do you want to call to action? Do you want to, obviously you want people to tune in for the film, but how can people best support you?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like word of mouth is the best thing. If you don't like it, don't rate it on Letterboxd or IMDb. But if you do, it helps us. No, but like, listen, it's your movie now, so you get to do whatever you want. It's your prerogative. But if you could see it in theaters, I would really recommend it. The sound design is incredible. Our sound designer Kyle did an amazing job, and we're in Alamo Draft Houses, which is notorious for having incredible sound design. So look up if you're in some of the major cities and the major markets. I highly recommend it. If not, rent it on demand. So we're in theaters July 29th, and we will be on demand August 4th. And also, if there are any international distribution people listening to this, we haven't sold in other markets, and I want that to happen.
Liz, what do you remember from our conversation with Addison?
I remember him being very intense. I remember lots and lots of energy, like so much just like, I feel like we didn't have enough time, right? Like when we wanted very pragmatic answers, we didn't get them, but I didn't think that was a fault of the conversation or a problem. It was just there was so much he wanted to share, and he seemed to be really excited to be transparent and supportive of others. Like, I remember his heart was very big, so I enjoyed that. What do you remember?
Yeah, the energy is something you cannot forget. I feel like he talked about meeting people at film festivals, and I feel like if I was at a film festival where he was there, like we would be definitely the people talking to each other, because we're both like looking for someone to talk to at these things. And I think sometimes like what he said about being back against the wall and like not being sure like who to talk, like I felt that so many times at film festivals, and like it just takes that action of going up and like reaching out your hand and saying hello to somebody. I don't necessarily do it right away, but I eventually do it at every festival I go to. So it was cool to hear that from him, and then kind of hear about his his experiences and how that's been such an important part of his journey. I also say that like he did, like when we would ask a question, he would give this really long answer, and then at the very end like we would like re-clarify sometimes, and then he would give us like the exact answer that we were looking for. So he did get there.
He did get there. It just
took him a little while sometimes, but I don't know, I love talking to people like this. It's very exciting. He's got like this huge trajectory that his career is on. Premiered at South by Southwest, working with XYZ, film is getting a theatrical release, like all the good things are happening to him. He's got management. He like got to be like courted by multiple managers. Like, man, sounds pretty great, just to have.
Oh, it's ideal. It's an ideal situation.
True Hollywood experience is what it sounds like. So I'm excited to see what he does next and see where his name pops up. It was funny. He was talking about those two those co-directors who did Spring and other movies. Like I just saw them that they directed like a couple episodes of Moon Knight, or at least one episode of Moon Knight.
Ooh.
for Disney. So it was like fun to see like these indie guys who like totally came up like in the similar realm, similar circles, ways that, you know, we are working basically. And then to see them get to that level is like very encouraging that like indie folks are making it happen. So I hope Addison, you know, hope we see more from him in the future.
We have a brand new iTunes review to share this week, and it is titled Indie's Time to Shine. They say, this podcast recently landed on my radar and immediately drew my attention because both the questions and answers are no holds barred. In the next decade, as all content creation migrates to Web3, I predict these young, ambitious indie filmmakers we are introduced to each week will be on the front lines of change. Stay tuned. And that's from Transmogrification from the US. Thanks, Transmogrification. That's a really, really kind review. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Transmogrification. I also want to add that I think this person listened to our episode with
Rick Dugdale.
I was going to say Ricky Doug. I was like, that's not his
That's our nickname, our internal nickname for Rick Dugdale.
Exactly. But yeah, and then I'm really excited for them to hear our upcoming NFT episode that's coming out in a few weeks. So more Web3 conversations to be had. We also have a brand new, spanking fresh off the presses topic suggestion and question from previously mentioned Dominic Zappia on Twitter. Dominic writes, "Hi, I listened to your podcast, and on the last episode, you talked about the benefits of a screenwriter-director partnership." Oh, so funny. Just a suggestion, but I'd love to hear you and Alrik expand on what that partnership would look like in a future episode. Maybe you could have on a screenwriter-director duo from within the independent filmmaking space. It would also be interesting to hear what directors expect in a cold email query from a screenwriter. Just an idea I had. Enjoy the show, and I hope your family gets over COVID quickly. Very sweet.
That's very nice, Dominic.
What do you think, Liz, about this?
I have a lot to say. I was thinking about what do I look for? And what do I look for? And then how does that evolve into an ideal partnership? And I'm looking for writers who are not passive, who are active members in developing the film. I'm not saying that they have to attend every single development meeting or they have to spend hours and hours per week with me as I try to get a film off the ground. What I'm suggesting is if we need a treatment written because a production company wants to have a treatment, I need to be able to go to that person and say, could you write a treatment for us? And they say, yes, of course, get it for you in a week or two. When we're looking to change the title of the film and we need it more genre specific, I want them to weigh in on what they want the title to be because it came from their mind. It came from their heart. When we're looking to build a deck and we're looking for comp films to reference that are tonal comparables, I want them to weigh in. Like I want them to be a part of the process because they are they're responsible for the emotional core of the film. I think the writer is the originator of that. And I need to tap into that as a resource, as a director. My producers need to tap into that. The script is like the reason for the film existing in the first place. The writer's passion for the script and the process is what fuels me. So what I'm looking for in a partnership is a partner, is someone who's active, but I never want to ask for too much because they're already giving so much, right? They gave the script. That's vital. And they're giving their time. I just think that cutting the writer off the process happens very easily. And I think my assumption is that once you cut out the writer, you lose the soul of the film just a little bit. Unless, there are exceptions, there are outliers to every rule. But I think the writer should be a part of the development process. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with all that stuff. I'm curious, like in a cold email query from a screenwriter, what is in that, ideally, what's in that email for you? Like, what do you want to see when someone reaches out to you to tell you about their script?
I want to see why they love it so much. And it could be just one sentence. Like, this is my top project. This is my first priority. Like, it's just something that expresses passion. And I want them to be explicit about what they want from me. Every now and then I get emails from people that are like, oh, would you read this? And I have no idea why they want me to read it because I produce, I direct, I write, I also do sales, I do distribution consulting. They could just be asking me for feedback. They might just want a reader. Like, I have no idea. So I always want that query to say, like, I've written the script. I want you to direct it. I'm interested in you because of X. Like, I need them to explicitly say it. I'm interested in you because of Y, because of X. It's my top priority or my favorite project because of Z. And if you need anything else, let me know. Like, it could be super simple, I think.
Yeah. I would say that, like, if you do want a director to direct your movie, if that's like the reason why you're sending it to them, I wouldn't be shy about that. Like, I would tell them, because it would make me feel really good if someone sent me a script and we're like, hey, we want you to direct it. I would be honored. Even if I couldn't do it, or the script didn't like jive with me, like, I'm more likely to like be more engaged with you if you tell me why you're interested in me. If you don't know what you want, or if you just want to read it or whatever, whatever, that's fine too. But like, that is the first question I always ask, is like, what are you looking for? Just because what they're looking for needs to line up with what I'm looking for. And oftentimes what some people are looking for is a payday. And it's like, that's just not going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know many, if any, indie directors who are going to like write a check to read your script, or say, oh yeah, let me read it. If I like it, I'll pay for it. It's like, that's just not going to happen. Like, this is not the way it works. And if that's your expectation, people aren't going to read your work. That's just not going to be the way it is. Like, unless you're, talking to production companies or producers who have budgets to spend. But like, again, the people who are able to do that are so few. So I would just be like, hey, don't expect a payday, but maybe expect a partnership, or be looking for a partnership,
Yeah. I want to follow up with what you're saying, is that it's not because the writer doesn't deserve the money. If we lived in an ideal world, we would be paying the writer for the access to utilize their film. Like, I don't think it's out of lack of desire on our part. It's that the industry is broken. Directors aren't getting paid. We're basically operating at a deficit at all times as independent creators. And so I think it's the expectation. We're basically saying, don't expect to be paid because no one is being paid. Like, it is, nothing is personal, and it's not about the quality of the work, and it's not about your lack of experience or whatever it is. It's that we actually have to join forces to make the content together. But I would encourage you, as a writer, whoever's listening to this and is a writer, to protect yourself and to create a contract with the director or with the producer that says, okay, well, if you don't have money now, the first money that comes in, I get X. Or if the film makes X, I get Y. Like, figure out a way to get compensated. Just don't expect it to be upfront, because it very rarely is.
Yeah, like, we should all be getting paid, right? That'll be all written into the budget. But it's like, like, I'm going to be working for free until we get the budget, and then even, like, we're going to put fees and whatever for everybody in the budget, but the first person's fee who's going to get cut is the directors, right? So like, you should just basically realize that when you're looking to collaborate with a director, like, they're not going to get paid, maybe ever. Maybe they'll get paid at the end when you get paid, or like, not the end, but maybe they'll get paid when the deal is signed, like when you're going to get paid, but probably not. Maybe they'll get paid at the end. Probably not. They're going to be the first people to like, take that hit to get the work done, So just, I think that's a little context. So like, you don't get all offended, and, because it isn't, like Liz said, it's not because we don't think you deserve it. It's because it's just not how the system works. It's just not how it works,
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else to say about this, Liz? I have a few more things.
Well, just briefly, I've had a few horror stories, and they're not even horror stories, but of like writers who have approached me, and I made the presumption that they wanted me to direct it, and we had calls and we talked, and then they would say things like, well, I want you, but my producer doesn't want you. Or like, oh no, I just wanted to hear what you thought of the script. It's like, don't waste anyone's time. Really as a writer, think of your project. You're also now the producer of that project the minute you connect yourself with a director. You are producing the film now because you're connecting it with a teammate. And be conscientious of the people you are approaching. Approach specifically. Don't go out wide. Approach the people that you want to work with, because everyone's time is precious. I can't get over the fact that like, I found this script, I loved it. The writer was like, I want to work with you, but my producer doesn't think you're big enough. And it's like, why did we have this meeting? Why did we talk?
Why'd you get my hopes built up?
Right. It hurts our feelings.
It does. And it wastes our time. We could have been working on another project or whatever. That's why, like, that's part of my process, is just being super clear with every person I talk to, even before I read the script. Just like, I want to direct this. I am reading this because I want to direct it, and I want it to be my next movie. Like, is that going to work for you? you know?
Yeah.
And if it isn't, then it's like, fine. Or if like, oh yeah, sure, but you got to pay me an option. It's like, no, can't do it. Sorry. Like, I'm not going to waste my time reading it if that's what your answer is, because the chances of me liking it are like probably pretty small no matter what, you know, but like, it's like, it's not worth it.
Right.
If you know you have to pay them something to even start the long process of trying to make this movie. It's just not practical and just not something. I don't think it's a responsible move of a director. And I've seen director friends do this where they hire writers to write things for them and they blow like $10K and then the movie never gets made. And then in some cases, they don't even own the damn thing. The writer owns it. And it's just like, why is this a thing? This is so insane. Like, because that's what writers will do sometimes. They'll be like, okay, well, my fee is this, but if you pay me this, I'll do it. But then I'm the owner of it. And it's like, as a director, never do that. It's just a bad deal for you as a director. It's a great deal for the writer, but like it's not worth it, as a creator. Anyways, I'm stepping off my soapbox, but I think this answered the question pretty clearly. Like, it's just like the partnership thing I think is huge. And like I was gonna say, like on my last two projects, I had my writers do all the copy for my pitch decks. So I would be like, here's the deck, here's the pages we're going to have. I outline what I want the pages to be, and I'm like, fill it in, like write the copy for these. And then I'll do all the art, I'll put it all together, I'll do all that. But if you just deliver me the copy, that's the way that we partner. And I think that works really well because it's like, it lets them do their thing. And then they feel like, oh, I'm bringing something to the table because I put the whole thing together. And it's like, it's a mutual beneficial process to go through. You
each get a voice too, right? It's
totally.
I thought of one more thing. I'm so sorry. I have talked about this on the show. It is like my mantra when I talk to filmmakers, but like in development, everyone is going to pee on your project. They want to pee on it. That even if the script is perfect, someone's going to come out of the blue and they're going to say, I got money, but I have this one note. And you're going to have to make the decision about whether you're going to take those notes or not. And so being a writer who is open to revising the script, even if you think it's perfect, within reason, making changes within reason, I think is really, really important.
It's crucial.
And being able to negotiate how much to protect the core of the script and then what things you are willing to compromise on. That's an art, and that's something that would be best discussed at the very top of a collaboration, right? Even in that intro email, and I'm open to making, small changes or something could be said in that email.
That's a good point, because there are people who feel like it's perfect and doesn't need to be changed, but they also have to realize that that's not how this goes. The director is going to have opinions. They're going to want to see changes, and then investors, producers, production companies, they're all going to have notes. Everyone has notes. Everybody has notes, and you're going to have to take some, or at least pretend to take them, or try to take them. Right. It's like there's all these levels of you have to do in order for them to think that you actually give a shit. You have to give a shit about what people ask you to do, even if it doesn't work, and you have to treat it all with respect, even if it's the worst idea in the world. So it's this whole game, and you got to be ready to play it. That's a really good point, Liz.
I have a question for you.
Oh, we're gonna do it. Let's do it.
So yesterday we interviewed my new favorite people, the Addams family, the filmmakers behind Deeper You Dig and Hellbender. And I thought that they lived a pretty ideal lifestyle. And people who will listen to the show, they'll see that these are filmmakers who either live in an RV or in the Catskills, and they just make movies however they want outside of the system, really intuitively and as a family of equals. And it got me thinking, what is an ideal filmmaking setup for you, Alrik? What is the best way to live your life as a filmmaker?
Well, I think for me, it's probably not that, really. I don't necessarily want to have to do every single job on my movie, or have to, share that much creativity with someone else on every project. I want, some I will definitely collaborate and be a co-director on a project or whatever. That's totally fine. But that's definitely not what I want to do for every project. I think an ideal scenario for me is where I don't have bills to pay, but it's just taken care of, where all I get to do all day long is work on my filmmaking. And ideally would have some sort of source of money that was available to me where I could produce my own work independently and not have to worry about finding investment elsewhere. And I'm not talking about millions and millions of dollars, but if I could make make movies between $500,000 and $1 million sustainably from my own funds, then that would be ideal, where I could just do this and, I'm not going to be able to afford to make a $10 million movie or whatever, but like I can make reasonable size movies, or like, I say, I have $1 million. Like I could be the first person in on a $2 to $3 million movie, and then we can find the rest of the money, like that would be like the ideal situation for me, where I could just be with my family, work from home, create, and then like every year go off and make a movie for 30 days to 40 days and then come back and edit it and work from home and, work out in the morning, have my home gym, rewriting and, hang out with my daughter and, just focus all my energy on the creativity. I think that would be my ideal filmmaking world. But what about you, Liz?
No, I like that. I'm just picturing it. I think there's something really dreamy about what the Addams family does. I like, because I met Sean, my husband, at film school. He's an actor. He's in every one of my films. We do butt heads sometimes. Like we've tried to co-direct before and it didn't really work out. But I think there's a world where if we set it up the way the Addams family does, which is they shoot all ideas, they take all ideas, they follow their intuition, and they have no time restrictions, right? Like they took a year to make Hellbender. There may be a world where that could happen. There's another family I know, the Jones family, and they have 2 kids, and their kids act and hold the boom pole and are the on-set mixer. Like they do everything together. And I think I am more excited about the idea of working with my son as part of the family filmmaking unit. Like that's what I think is so dreamy, right? It's like, what if I could bring Colin in and we can make a movie together? Like that's so I think that's like this ideal lifestyle. I really like my day job. I really like working in filmmaker support and sales. I don't always know what I'm doing, but I'm learning and I'm being challenged, and I like being supportive of filmmakers. So I actually don't want to do filmmaking full time. I want to stay in artist support and filmmaking. I like the idea of scaling up a little bit. Like I don't want to make Marvel movies. I don't want to make big tentpole films, but I love to be able to be in demand and hired on films in addition to making films for myself. Like I want to be wanted, I think, and that's part of the ideal lifestyle.
I think that's the biggest disconnect between me and the Addams family, is that like they don't want to be hired to make movies. They don't want to be part of the system and have a job. But like, man, if someone wanted to hire me to direct a movie and like, I didn't write it or anything and I just like got it was director for hire, I'd love that. That'd be great. I think that would be such an amazing experience and such a great way to like, grow as a director and to like learn how to work in a completely different environment and like come into something in a completely different way. So like, I'm totally with you on that too. Just like, I don't need to be the originator of all my films. Like I'm, if something's really awesome and I can see, I have a vision for it and I think this movie would be great. Like I would love to be a part of it, and I'd love to collaborate with the team, So that was a big part that I just didn't understand. Like, why wouldn't you want to be hired to do, like you get to do what you love and you get to make money, but it's like, I guess they don't really care about that, and it's like, all right, well, fair enough.
I think there's a world where, because I'm attracted to both lifestyles, right? So it's like, I think there's a world where like I'm going to make my indie collective horror film next year, but I'm attached to these other projects. And in an ideal world, I get external financing for a project I'm attached to that I didn't write. And I get to make the micro budget features that I write. You know what I mean? It's not even one for them, one for you. They're like both for you. They're one for you and the other one's for you. But wouldn't it be nice to go back and forth in terms of having full ownership and then collaborating with a bunch of owners? That seems really nice.
Well, one thing I want to say, so it sounds like you're pretty much living your ideal life now. Like you pretty much have everything that you want. You're doing your artist job.
If feature 3 gets off the board, if I get to make another movie, then I'm living my ideal life.
So this is the other. I think this is why I'm in such a good mood lately, is because I realized that I will make another movie. You will make another movie.
We will.
It's not like an if or whatever. It's just a when. Like there's nothing that can stop us from doing what we want to do. It's just like the only thing that we can't control is like at what level we get to do it at. But like we've already done it at a certain level and we could just do that again and again and again. It just might take us longer or a certain amount of time each time to do it. But it's like, I just realized, I had this epiphany, like reading this script, it was like, there's nothing stopping me from being the filmmaker I want to be. It's just finding the right movie to make. And it's like, and who cares how long it takes? Like if it takes 10 years to find the right one to make, then it'll take 10 years, but I'm not going to stop doing it at any point, you know? And it's like, as long as you keep that alive and you keep doing that, you'll always have the opportunity to get hired to direct anything. Like, I mean, and it's so stupid, but it's true. Like the difference between us and a director who gets hired to make a Marvel movie is one indie hit. That's all it is.
That's true. All it is. Isn't that amazing?
It's crazy. It's insane. And it doesn't even have to be a big budget movie. It could be anything from like 500,000 to $1 million. Have one star in it. Not even, doesn't have to have a star in it necessarily, but it just has to be a huge indie hit, and then all the doors open. So it's like, let's just keep doing what we're doing, and like eventually one day, if it's meant to be, the doors will open for us. And if not, we get to have a wonderful life making the movies that we want to make. So that's why I'm in such a good mood. I think I just had that realization recently, you know.
I think that's like the perfect way to end the show. So anyone who's listening, you could always send us a question, comment, or suggestion to podcast@makingmoviesishard.com. If you like the show, like transmogrification, did I say that right? Hopefully.
I think so, yeah.
You can leave us a review on iTunes. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at MMIH Podcast, YouTube at Making Movies is Hard Podcast. Check out the International Screenwriters Association, which is an organization designed to connect writers with filmmakers through the programs they offer. You can publish your log line to a network of industry professionals. There's consultation courses, contests, a top 25 writers list. Head on over to networkisa.org to sign up for free today. Thanks to Addison Heimann for coming on the show. Thanks to Katrina and Tatum from Katrina One PR for setting this up. Thanks to our editor, Jeff Reimuth, for doing the editing. Thanks to our producer, Eric Toms, for being awesome. Thanks to all of you for listening, and talk to y'all next week. We have, that's my cue to Jeff.